Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And I meant to say something in the first video I did today, and for some inexplicable reason I forgot, but I'll tell you now. Today is my 56th birthday. I've been round the sun 56 times as of today. And so what I would like is for any of my regular viewers who have not yet subscribed to the channel to give me the best birthday present you can. Reach out right now, hit that subscribe button. If you've watched me a few times, you're coming back to me, fine, hit the subscribe button. We're 28, as I stand now, we're 28 away from a particular target that I would like to reach today. So if you have, anything you'd like to do, just hit that button. It would be fantastic. We can build this up. And of course, every time I get a subscription, the channel becomes a little bit louder. Our voice is louder. And we hold up to inspection those in authority, be they police, politicians, the health service, sportsmen, it doesn't matter. We hold them up. We show them what they are, whether they've broken the law, they've done something illegal, immoral, unethical, whether they're just plain stupid or hypocritical. We hold them to account. And in this day and age of censorship, it's nice that somebody can. We need to expose these people so that we all know exactly what they are. So do please hit that subscribe button if one of my regular viewers who has not yet subscribed. If you're a new viewer, also please hit the subscribe button and join us as we go on this journey of truth and ridicule of those in power. Anyway, enough of that. I'm moving on to today's video. This is about Humza Yousaf and his, I'm going to suggest, almost deliberate, I think, attempts to split the SNP. He has riven it in half. The election was close. It wasn't an overwhelming victory. And so there is going to be, I think, a schism in the party. And it's made worse by what he has done. He's come in, he should have seen what happened. He should have seen how the party was split almost down the middle. He could barely get half the votes. And in fact, he couldn't even get half the electorate. He got 37% of those eligible to vote voted for him. That's how bad he was. He's ended up as leader, but it's a divided party. So he has the opportunity to bring it together, to bring the two halves closer, and to mould a future where, yes, what's gone before can be, forgiven and forgotten as they work together for a better future. And he's done the exact opposite. He's riven that split even further. It's almost as though, if it isn't deliberate, it's just plain stupidity. And I can't believe even Humza Yousaf is that stupid. Well, he might be. Anyway, we'll take a look at this and we'll see what he has done that is so damaging, which is great for the rest of us, but what is so damaging for the SNP. It's car crash television watching him, Anyway, let's go and start this and have a look at this article. Right, precedent suggests the winner-takes-all interpretation of Humza Yousaf's 52-48 victory will only be the start of difficulties. This is the problem straight away. At 52-48, he's barely over, like I say, the halfway mark. The party is almost split in two straight away to begin with. It's not as though he had something like a 75-80% victory, in which case he could sort of literally say, yes, the party is generally with me in entirety. There's a small faction that disagree, but I can bring them to heel because I'm so strong in every other area of the party. Nicola Sturgeon had that. Nicola Sturgeon did have a massive agreement behind her. Nobody would have gainsayed her. Nobody would have stood against her. For all her faults, and she was a terrible woman and all that, but for all her faults, she was a consummate politician. Humza does not have that. He can barely get the support of his own supporters, let alone the public in general. So straight away, you've got a party that is in two factions. There's the die-hard, foaming at the mouth, rabid independents that follow Humza. And then there's the wiser old heads that go, yes, independence would be great, but at the moment we've got other fish to fry. Or in fact, they haven't because they can't afford fish anymore. And so this split already exists. The crack is there. And rather than sort of sealing it, rather than bringing it together, he is just going to push the two halves further apart. Mr Yousaf has not tried for consensus in his party. 9 out of 10 of the top jobs in the Scottish Government, including his own, have gone to his supporters. None of the 11 MSPs who endorsed his rival, Kate Forbes, have been appointed. None. Not one. He's not forgiving anyone. He's saying, because you didn't follow me, you're being punished. How dare you not follow me? He is like a petulant child. Rather than looking at those people who, yes, they may have endorsed a different candidate, but they may have known what they're talking about. They may have had the ability to do something constructive. He is just winnowing them out, throwing them away, casting them to one side, and putting in his yes men, his arse kickers, his little lick spittles. That's all he's got, because he's so insecure in himself. He knows he cannot, he's got to surround himself with these yes men, because he knows he cannot rely on his own decision-making process. He cannot rely on his own force of personality to get things through. So he surrounds himself with these people. But it's not for the good of the country. It's only for the good of Humza Yousaf. And in fact, it's not even for his good, because he will be in an echo chamber, hearing what he says echoed back at him, rather than anyone coming up and saying, actually, it's a really bad idea because of this, or we need to look at this again because of that. And so any kind of sensible policy will be completely overlooked, as they just push the single obsession of independence at every opportunity. It is bad news for Scotland. But what do you expect from a man who's as stupid as Humza Yousaf? Anyway, the raw statistics of this week's SNP leadership contest sent shivers down the spines of many who pore over the details of UK politics. 52% for the new party leader Humza Yousaf, and 48% for the rejected Kate Forbes, with only 2,142 votes separating them narrowly in a 72% turnout by the electorate, which in this case consisted of the Scottish National Party's shrinking, almost tiny membership. Only about 50,000 people voted, and so to get, even with his 52% of the vote of those who voted, he ended up with only 37% of party members voting for him, and now he's ruling the country, as it were. Over 6 million people, having only had 27,000 people vote for him. That is not any form of democracy. That pattern of close but decisive victory looked strangely familiar. Had we seen it somewhere else? Ah yes, the 2016 national referendum on EU membership, when Leave prevailed over Remain by 52 to 48% on a 70% turnout. So almost exactly the same. But wherever the British public stood and stands now on Europe, yes, no, did not vote, there seems to be a clear consensus in opinion polls that the aftermath has not been happy. We are even more divided and no better off than we were before. Even the careers of Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings, who led the triumphant campaign, have not ultimately prospered. And that's the problem. Even if you win, it's a Pyrrhic victory, because half the country is always going to be against you. You cannot even get close. And so, when you see what's happened with Brexit as an example, yes, we won the campaign, Brexit was a success, blah blah blah, but it's cost the careers of so many, because even by winning, you have damaged your reputation so much. You've damaged your party reputation so much. And that's what's happening now with Humza Yousaf. Yes, he's won, but at the cost of his potential career, because he is now seen as a weak leader, a man who can barely command a majority, a man who will be countersaid. People will stand up and people will reject things that he says, because they know that he's not in a strong enough position to do anything about it. And that is why this particularly weak cabinet he's put together, with not a single naysayer against him in there, is so very damaging, and will be seen to be damaging, and not just by the party, not just by the country as a whole, but even within the party. You've now got half the party who voted for Kate Forbes going, wait a minute, you haven't got anyone in who surrounded Kate Forbes. Why should we back you? What's keeping us in this party? There's nothing keeping them in. And I think Alba will benefit greatly from what he has done by picking this cabinet. He has basically said to the half of the party that didn't want him, look, I don't care, we want nothing to do with you. And they will pick up, they will quite happily get up and walk away and go to Alba. I would not be surprised if many already have. Anyway, getting back into it, the problems stem not from the results or from the democratic systems known as majoritarianism, which delivered it. The damage is done afterwards when a narrow win is interpreted as total victory and the careers of the vanquished are put to the sword. Mr Yousaf seems to be rushing to make the same mistakes with Scotland and the SNP to those made by the Conservative leadership after the 23rd of June 2016. Mr Yousaf has not tried for consensus in his party. 9 out of 10 of the top jobs in the Scottish Government, including his own, have gone to his supporters. None of the 11 MSPs who supported and endorsed Kate Forbes have been appointed. Keith Brown, the elected deputy leader of the party, has been sacked as Veterans and Justice Minister. Mr Brown did not take sides in the recent leadership contest. He was elected number 2 in the party in 2018 by 55%, which is a bigger margin than Yousaf got as leader. Unlike the Tories in Westminster, the new party leader seems to be draining its talent pool deliberately. And this is what I said. Is it deliberate? It's got to be deliberate. He's got to be making these choices deliberately. He is weakening. He is splitting the party. By not picking that side of the party, he's alienating them. How can you command a party where you're alienating half of them? You can't. You can't. You are playing the divisive game. And when you divide people, you lose half of them. Internecine struggles have already resulted in the SNP's biggest fish and its First Minister jumping out to found a new nationalist party, Alba. Oh, its biggest fish, it's very good. Yes, on the scale of things. From the sidelines, Alex Salmond jeered at his successor. When you win an election by 52% to 48%, when your two rival candidates got more than you did, the very first thing you do as leader is to get them in your tent. You don't offer them a demotion and then wonder why they turn that down. That's an early and fairly substantial mistake. And of course, it's a mistake he made. It was almost the first mistake he made. He took his rival and gave her a shitty job, effectively a shitty job. Go and deal with the farmers, go and deal with the rural affairs, because it's a demotion. It makes it look as though I've given you a bone, thrown her a bone. But, it's nothing. It is nothing. And no wonder she told him to go and shove it right, where the sun don't shine. Not surprisingly, the SNP rivals in Scotland, the Conservative, Labour and Lib Dems, are also licking their lips at the prospect of civil war among the Scot Nats. It may not all be Mr Yousaf's fault. Divisions might have been too deep to bridge already after the fierce criticism he faced during the campaign, most notably from the other candidates, it must be said. The level of support Ms Forbes received and her willingness to talk about joining his team suggests she would have stayed on as a widely admired Finance Secretary, the second most important cabinet post. Her offer, Fisheries and Rural Affairs, was insultingly way down the pecking order, especially when the leadership policy in these areas is at variance with Forbes and those she stands for in the party. Yousaf snubbed the other candidate, Ash Regan, in total. She got 11% of the first round, and there was no talks or even a derisory offer from her. And of course not, because he sees her as a nothing. The trouble is, and don't forget, Ash Regan got 11% of the vote herself. That's 11% of the voters that he's alienating as well. When you consider he only got 37% of the vote. That means that 63% of the SNP don't want him, rejected him, and he cannot possibly run a party like the way he's doing it, sort of a total authoritarian leader, when you're only commanding 37% of the popularity in the party. It is not possible. He will not last unless he changes, and one way he has to change is to fire half that candidate, half that cabinet, and put in people who he fought against, put in people who supported the other candidates. It's the only way that he can save it, if he can save it at all. It's far too late, I think. Mr Yousaf certainly cannot claim to have assembled a government of all the talents. After a mediocre performance in several government departments, he's been nicknamed Humza Yousaf, while the rest of his team are not household names, even in their own households. which I like that line. Proffering a downgrading post is a classic ploy to knock out a rival. It is an offer they find easy to refuse and is seldom sincere. Mr Johnson played this game in 2019 from a position of strength and support from 2/3 of the Tory membership when he suggested Jeremy Hunt, then Foreign Secretary, might like to consider defence. Traditionally, a rising politician moves in the opposite direction across Whitehall. Mr Johnson progressively purged his cabinet and party of experienced politicians who represented an ideological or personal threat to him. Seriously compromised politicians such as Priti Patel and Gavin Williamson ended up enjoying repeated positions of power, once he had gone out of the scene, because he did it as well. I mean, Johnson was doing it. He was splitting his party and not bringing in the correct people, but he was doing it from a sort of 70% power base, whereas Humza Yousaf is doing it from a 37% power base. And when you've only got 37%, that is not a power base. That is an embarrassment. Earlier generations of Conservative leaders were wiser. Happy birthday to John Major and Michael Heseltine, respectively, who are 80 and 90 years old this week. Mr Heseltine successfully dethroned Margaret Thatcher but failed to seize the crown himself. The new leader, Mr Major, hugged him tight with cabinet posts of his choice. Eventually Mr Heseltine became an invaluable Deputy Prime Minister to Mr Major and no threat. Douglas Hurd and Kenneth Clarke were also accommodated for long and fruitful careers on the front bench from Mrs Thatcher onwards. So you've got, this is the thing you've got. You've got an experienced politician like Boris Johnson who's made these mistakes. You've got an inexperienced man who doesn't have a power base and he's making these mistakes and a whole set of new ones. We're looking at that man, look at that picture and realise that the women on either side of him commanded way more of the vote. He got 37%. He does not have much time. If he splits, if people start leaving, if the membership starts falling significantly, he will be gone. And he's doing everything in his power to drive people away by the alienation, by not reflecting their views in cabinet members, by not reflecting what they think is of a concern, by single-handedly pushing for the one obsessive policy that they have, which is independence. They will drive the normal members of the normies, we call them, the normal members of the SNP who aren't, like I say, the foaming rabid ones. They'll drive them to Alba in their thousands, and I think good. It will hasten his passing. Put it that way. Mr Yousaf represents a continuity from Nicola Sturgeon's regime, which had just stuttered to a close ignominiously, with the effective immediate resignations of her husband Peter Murrell, the SNP General Secretary, and her communications chief Murray Foote. The Scottish Greens, the SNP's current coalition partners, immediately backed Mr Yousaf as First Minister, providing that Mr Yousaf carries on with the madness that is the bottle deposit scheme and pushing the gender recognition bill. Both of which are failures regardless of what happens. If Miss Forbes had won, they were set to pull out, leaving her in charge of a minority administration. Under Mr Yousaf, their joint progressive agenda continues, including backing for gender self-ID, on which Miss Sturgeon got out of step with popular opinion, out of step with 99% of Scots. And he's pushing it. He's seeing this as a failure, and yet he's pushing it because the man only knows how to fail. In electoral terms, the Greens and the SNP are competing with each other for progressive nationalist votes, and it remains to be seen who will ultimately benefit from their coalition. In the meantime, the smaller fringe party has set the government's agenda in a similar way to the influence the Conservative Party and the right-wing factions beyond, such as UKIP and Reform. In both cases, the drift of the party seems to be leaving a large gap in the centre for others to exploit. There is a massive hole in the middle of the party. Everything in the party now is geared up, just at the top, just in the top, is all geared up to be single-minded on independence. But that's not what the vast percentage of the party members want. It's not what the vast percentage of Scots want. And I think that if they do start jumping ship, they do go and join Salmon in Alba, it will see and hasten the end of Humza Yousaf and possibly even the end of the SNP. It could be that Humza Yousaf is the last leader of the SNP, and I don't think there'd be too many people to mourn it. Anyway, I shall round off, come up, and we will finish the video. I think one of Humza Yousaf's biggest problems, apart from obviously the stupidity and the inability, is his hubris. He truly, firmly believes that he is a capable politician. He thinks he can run a country. He couldn't run any of the departments, but he thinks he can run a country. He thinks he can do a good job as leader of the SNP and as First Minister of Scotland. He really believes that. And this is the kind of delusional thinking that marks out the mad. I mean, he has delusions of adequacy, but the man is not adequate. You saw in the question time yesterday, FMQs yesterday, he struggled. He couldn't answer questions asked of him. He got shouty. He got rude. This is the sign of someone who does not understand what's going on. It's a sign of someone who's panicking because he doesn't know. He deflects. He, attacks. He doesn't answer the question because he knows that the question is, in his case, unanswerable. And you've got possibly 2 more years of this. I mean, I don't think he'll last. I make a prediction that he will not last. I think people will leave the party. I think people will leave the party and go to Alba. And I think once you're getting over even a few thousand, it'll be as few as that. Maybe, let's say, 3,000-4,000. By the time 3,000 or 4,000 have left the SNP and gone over to Alba, questions will be asked. And he will be gone. And that'll be no bad thing. And he'll be finished. That'll be his career finished. But you have to then ask, what would he do outside of politics? Because I don't think he's capable of doing anything else. I'm sure McDonald's might hire him, but even then, would you trust him to get your order right? I mean, this is the level of the man, that he couldn't even be trusted to serve you a burger. And he thinks he's capable of running a country. Well, never mind. Anyway, I shall stop there. It's been rather a long video. So if you have stuck to the end, well done. Thank you. Please do hit the subscribe button at the bottom. As I say, it's very important. We're getting almost to a target, and so it'd be really, really helpful if you would. Please ring the bell for future notifications. Leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video, but definitely leave a like because the political ones, they tend to get pushed down. You leave a like, it lifts it up in the algorithm. And anyway, until next time then, stay safe, stay well. Let's just hope it isn't long before he's gone. And goodbye.